How about them tops, son?
All day, SEC boys. SEC, they supposed to be SEC. Crazy all day, baby.
You're listening to the Red Out Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into another Red Out Podcast. My name is Devin, and I'm sorry we're a few minutes late. It has been very hectic this week, or today especially, and so still getting the show in. We're going to be talking a lot about the WKU versus MTSU. If you haven't seen that, stop listening right now and go watch it on YouTube. It was not the prettiest game in the world. And Jared and I will talk about that momentarily as soon as I can get Jared on the line. So we do have Abby this week. She is asleep. That's kind of why I am talking a little bit lower. But I am trying to get closer to the microphone so we can still talk some football. We're going to be talking about Marshall. And it looks like Jared's coming into the show right now. How's it going, buddy?
Hey, how are you?
Doing good. So I was telling everybody I'm talking a little bit lower because Abby's asleep right now, but you're fine. You just keep talking the way you are.
All right, perfect.
So I guess we'll just start off like always with our winners and losers. First off, my Packers are 4-0, so there's that.
What's it like to have a professional football team that you like that's good?
What's it like? I mean, until probably the final week of the playoff, I'm just like, yeah, we're good. And then there's some way they screw it up, and it's just like, okay.
At least you get there, my friend.
I was going to say, and then it's usually on to next year.
Yeah. I mean, I think two at a time may be coming sooner than later because I think that, Fitzpatrick, he knows that. Bless his heart. He's been on so many different teams, but he's at least very aware of the situation. He's not exactly on a super long leash by any means. So, they're going to give him a couple more games, I think, and see how it goes. But I think that Flores is about ready to let Tua loose, which I'll be glad to see that. I like Tua a lot as a person and a player, so I'm looking forward to see how he'll do in Miami. I hope it's really good.
Yeah, honestly, I just noticed I goofed up on the title of the show. But anyway, but talking about Fitzpatrick, I feel like Fitzpatrick's at that point in his career where he knows when that talk starts coming up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He sees the writing on the wall. He's a smart guy. He's got to know it's coming.
He went to Harvard.
Exactly. He's got the highest whatever test score that is that the NFL takes. So, I think what is that test called? Do you remember?
I know exactly what you're talking about, but I don't remember.
Let me Google this real quick. So do you want to talk about your winners and losers real quick?
Yeah, sure. Losers, I guess, is just the whole COVID situations everywhere. I know that the Titans, they still had more tests. The Patriots, they lost somebody because of it now that they're not going to be able to play. I think it's just the NFL is getting hit really hard with it right now, which makes sense because, they're not as strict as like an NBA bubble or Major League Baseball bubble. So, it's not super surprising to see. And also, like the state of Kentucky, I think we reported over 2,300 cases today, which is definitely not good. So that's not a good trend.
No, definitely not. The test is called the Wonderlic test.
Wonderlic, yeah, that's right.
So for our listeners out there, if you want, you can take it free online.
Why would I suffer through taking a test voluntarily for no reason?
It's a 10-minute test, first off. You have 10 minutes to answer 50 questions.
What kind of questions are there?
I don't have any. Okay, so full discretion. I watched a show called The League back in the day, which I love. Super fantasy show. And these guys, they all sat down and took the Wonderlic test to see who in the group was the smartest. And I think one of the questions that they had was, if you have 3 ties, 5 shirts, and 2 pants, how many different combinations are there?
Oh, yeah. If it involves basic mathematics, then I for sure would fail it.
I think it's 30 because isn't it? There'd be 30 different combinations because there's 3 times 5 times 2. But anyway,
Don't quote me on that. I have no idea.
but,
Let me pull out my calculator real quick.
So we'll let Ross do his recap when he comes on later on the show. But the big winner, I think, this week is Taywan Taylor getting signed. Wasn't that by the Browns?
Yeah, he's still with Cleveland.
Yeah, he was on the practice squad, and then they signed him to the actual team. Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
Crazies. I mean, awesome. Love it when ProTops,
And that's pretty deep on wide receiver, too. I mean, they have Odell Beckham Jr. They also have Jarvis Landry, too. So I hope he sees the field a little bit, maybe even if it's like the 4 or 5 guy. But I think they might have some, especially on like special teams, like kick returns and stuff. He would be pretty solid with that. I
kind of wondered if that was one of the main reasons. I was going to say that he wasn't getting any kind of playing time because of Odell Beckham and, the other guy you were mentioning. And, as deep as they are with wide receiver. But I love it. I'm glad he's on a team. I'm glad he's, out there doing good. And it always makes me feel good to actually watch a random game and just see somebody and you be like, hey, that guy was a Hilltopper.
Yeah, and I thought that Mike White was going to be getting close to potentially playing too because Sam Darnold has been out, but I forgot they had Joe Flacco. So, I mean, he's won a Super Bowl before. That makes sense, even though he's a little older now that he would play. But I guess he's like third string because he is on the active roster. So if something happens to Flacco too, then that means Mike White will get to play for the Jets with George Fant.
Do you remember the story with Joe Flacco? I want to open some really loud chips. So
you're good. It's always the loudest sound on the face of the earth, especially if you're trying to do it late at night.
Oh yeah, and I've got the door. I've got like a block right here so the dogs can't come in and wake Abby up. So, but anyway, Joe Flacco. I don't remember who they were playing in the Super Bowl, but the story was that he had made up his mind, and he told another player, if they break this, I'm going to tackle the guy. So he's going to come off the sidelines and make the tackle, and I cannot remember for the life of me who they played.
It was San Francisco.
Yes, good call.
It was Kaepernick.
Yep, that's right. And that's who. Yeah. He's like, if they break one and they're going to the end zone, he's like, I'm going to go out there and tackle him. And I'm like,
what are you doing?
I know, right? You're just like, what an idiot.
Yeah. Me.
Of course,
I guess if I were to have a winner too, I hadn't thought that much about it, but I mean, I guess Western, just to the fact that they finally got that first win in football, we needed that so much. If we would have lost the middle, I would have regurgitated on the spot. So, yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of work to do. I know we'll talk about this more when Ross probably hops on, but I didn't watch any of the game. I know you rewatched it after it was uploaded. But yes. It's just god-awful football.
It was not pretty whatsoever. And I mean, of course, next week's predictions are not pretty whatsoever. But we'll go ahead and talk about this a little bit. I did not get to watch the game live. I had to go back and watch it late. I watched it Sunday because I was at work. And honestly, I didn't even check scores. I was that nervous about it. I was like, I don't want to know. Yeah. I was full media blackout. I was like, I don't want to see it. I didn't get on Facebook. I didn't do anything because I was like, I want to sit down and enjoy this game and see how it goes. And then, of course, I think at like 9:00 that night, I had finally, had enough. So I pulled out ESPN and pulled it up, and I was like, 2017, not bad. And it wasn't in overtime, not bad. Yeah. But watching the game, of course, you haven't watched it, but the entire first quarter was ugly. Yeah. It was the ugliest thing I have watched. I think, didn't Ross say last week that the only thing Middle had is Ashlyn O'Hara?
Yeah, that's Asher.
And that is Asher, Ashlyn, whatever. Honestly, that to me is he's right. That's the only thing they really have going. He is their biggest athlete they've got, and he's in a couple of years when they get some players to go around them, they're going to be set.
Or he might try to transfer or something. You never know. I mean, I don't know.
It wouldn't surprise.
If they do horrible, I mean, I don't know why he would want to stick around with that.
Well, if And that's another thing for me is if Stockstill doesn't get fired, I could
There's no
see
way they can get rid of him because his buyout is so ridiculous that a school like Middle, unless they get something like Kevin Byard or someone like that that's got a bunch of stacks, they're not buying that out anytime soon.
I could if they hired a hitman, they might could get out of it easier. But
I wasn't gonna go illegally, but I mean, you do you.
It's whatever. Hey,
When the FBI listens to this, that was Devin that said that, not me.
if I'm just gonna say, if the ADs or anybody in the upper echelon of Middle Tennessee is listening to this, you must have nothing else to do with your life. So I got to say to listen to a Western podcast.
You never know.
No, you really don't. First quarter was the ugliest quarter ever. Western came out, kicked a Brandon Narvison kicked a 47-yard field goal to start the second quarter. And then it was just kind of back and forth from there. Western.
He hit one over 52, didn't he?
I think so. Yeah, he had a 53-yarder in the third quarter.
See, I was kind of shook when Munson didn't end up with the starting kicker job, but now that I've started to see Narvinson play a lot, I mean, it does make kind of sense. He's been pretty consistent. He's hitting some long ones too, so I'm definitely impressed.
Honestly, I was the same as you, and then he started kicking, and I was like, meh, I can live with this. This isn't bad at all. Yeah. And I mean, Haggerty's doing really good on punts, and I mean, this year so far, and I did see that Pigram and Narvison actually did get Conference USA Player of the Week honors.
They deserve it.
Yeah. I mean, he kicked 2 45-plus field goals, which, by the way, I could never kick a 45-yard field goal in my life. Yeah. And Pigram played awesome. Let me see. Let's see if I can pull up some player stats for him. Passing yards, he was 21 of 36 for 188 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had 16 carries for 55 yards.
Yeah.
So I mean, when you look
at least he's a little more consistent. I mean, even an improvement as much as that, I think, is a good sign.
I think the biggest difference for him was he started throwing to Simon too.
Yeah, I mean, you want to try to get it to one of your best receivers, and even though he's a tight end, I still think he's probably the most reliable person you can throw to on the team right now, besides maybe Tinsley or someone like that.
I think tight end is one of the most underappreciated wide receiver-esque positions because, they can literally – look at Gronk. Gronk has had an amazing has had whatever amazing career because of that.
And I think they're as athletic as wide receivers because, they got 50 more pounds on them and maybe 4 or 5 more inches than a regular wide receiver, but yet they're still doing a lot of the same things that they would do catching the ball.
Look at Captain Jack, which I don't know how he's doing on the Colts. Is he back or is he still on?
Yeah, he's back. I saw him play Sunday. I can't remember. They were playing the Bears. Yeah,
awesome.
Iggy, he was on defense. So that was cool.
That's kind of funny all on its own. But if you took one of, trying to think of a wide receiver, we really didn't have anybody go pro though. That when I was there, wide receivers were typically a lot thinner. Where Jack Doyle was probably, he probably had 40, 50 pounds on one of the wide receivers, and probably had 6 or 8 inches height on him too. Mm-hmm. But it's just, I enjoy the tight end throwing, that's always great for me. I always like that because it's kind of the unsung hero throw. But Xavier Lane coming up big for Western too on Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's going to be one that steps up a lot, I think, especially with Pearson being gone now.
Yes, I completely agree. And you know what? We saw somebody else who I was really shocked to see, glad to see in that aspect too, was Jakari Moses. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, he had 36 yards, but in Chase Jones, that kid's just pulling his weight too.
Yeah.
It kind of went Pigram, Chase, Jakari, and then Gage, which really surprised me that Gage only had 15 yards. Mm-hmm. But sorry, I am laughing because you're so agreeable.
I mean, it's true. I mean, I'm kind of glad to see Hilton give different snaps for different running backs to just kind of distribute things instead of just let Walker carry everything.
Yeah, and it was kind of like the sole receiver last year, and now they got this receiver or running back by committee, sole running back by committee now. And I honestly thought Gage's numbers would be better, but I mean, it kind of looks. I don't know. It could just be the play, you know. I mean, maybe they're just trying to save Gage. I don't know.
Well, they haven't really been super run heavy with running backs anyways much this season. I think there's been more runs with Higram and stuff like that that's designed more than just your basic standard HV draw or anything like that.
Well, and another aspect that may have affected Gage's numbers was he had a big fumble on Saturday too.
Mm-hmm.
Lost it, middle recovered, and then of course Pickram had a fumble and he recovered it. But I mean, and then you flip it on the other side of the ball. Antoine Kincaid, Kyle Bailey, Eli Brown, Malone, Devin Key, all those guys played amazing on Saturday. And I mean, yeah, there's not a lot to say about it as far as that goes.
We needed that too, because if we would have let Middle run up 30 points on our defense, that would have been really bad.
Let me see if I can let me look at.
Especially after the Liberty game too, where we gave up like 500 rushing yards.
Well, they did have 300 yards, but and
I don't understand that at all. As good as our defense was last season, I feel like we didn't lose that much to where they would just be giving up 300 plus yards just on the ground or just total, whatever it might be.
I wonder if they've introduced a new scheme or if there's a new aspect to it that we're just not seeing, or if it's.
It could be a lot. It could just be not having as much practice either because of COVID and everything too. I mean, there's so many different factors that could go into that.
Well, we didn't have spring ball.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe part of the fall training camp kind of screwed it up. I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
But
you can talk about stuff through like Zoom meetings and stuff, but until you're actually on the field and hit at each other, I mean, you can't really just talk through things like that.
And there's a timing thing too. So, you know, where you talk to somebody and visualize something, it's different than actually being in that position and actually having to, you know, like for instance, like stunts. So if, you know, let's say the nose has got A gap and you're supposed to stunt B gap, you know, is he going to take it as quickly as, you know, you think he should, or are you going to be faster than him? Or is he going to be faster than you? You know, there's a lot of things that play into that. And I'm hoping that, you know, maybe these things will start working themselves out. I don't think they're going to work themselves out by next week, but let's just hope.
Well, yeah. And with Marshall too, I mean, they're a lot better team than Middle is. So it's going to be interesting to see how that ends up. I was kind of hoping they would keep that ranking too coming into the Houch, but I mean, because we know what happened last time, but obviously I know things are so much different. We don't have the same weapons that we did. I mean, they are all right. Marshall is this year, but we'll see.
They've got 503 total yards average.
Yeah, that's how much Liberty had in one game against us. So, I mean, we'll see.
Well, it is a little skewed. Because they had a 59-0 game against DKU.
Yeah.
Which I had some listeners texting me about that, talking about how it was not the best. But, yeah. So they had that, and then they played App. I guess, is that App State?
Yeah, they beat App State when they were still ranked, and that's how they got ranked the next week.
I was going to say App State was number 23, and they beat them 17-7. But looking at stats, Marshall is, of course, it's a little inflated, so you have to take it with a grain of salt. They've got 38 points per game. Western's at 21. Points allowed, Marshall's allowed 3.5. So it's kind of crazy. And Abby has just woke up, so but just talking real quick stats. Marshall's quarterback, I mean, they must be going on the air raid. He's got 470 yards, 4 TDs with 1 interception. Knox has got 46 carries, 223 yards, 2 touchdowns. And I got Gaines Is that Xavier? Yes, Xavier Gaines has five receptions, excuse me, for 117 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah,
So,
and at least they don't have Rottenhauser anymore either as their kicker.
oh my
So
gosh.
hopefully, if we put them in a situation where they have to kick like a 57-yard field goal or something, that won't be the same result.
My thing is I am still flustered by last year having to read, MTSU comments,
Yeah.
Western's garbage, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, you know what? Y'all are garbage, okay?
Back fat in Nashville.
Yeah. So, now we got Marshall, and I'm just ready for those West Virginians to go back somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They're too confident right now. Marshall fans, we are the humblers of Marshall. That's what we have done since we've been in Conference USA. It's kind of crazy. I'll never forget the Black Friday game when they were ranked and on the verge of going to New Year's Six Bowl. And I mean, we were all right that year. I think we were like 8-4 or something like that, and came in. I was like, if we win, we win. If we don't, I mean, it's whatever. I mean, they're a ranked team. They're really solid. But man, I still think that's the most entertaining football game I've ever watched.
Yes. Honestly, I've been I need to go back in Hilltop Revolt and rewatch that game.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's got it. So definitely check it out. But looking at Marshall, they're a tough opponent. Right now, they got 7.
Mm-hmm.
The betting line is 7 points. Looks like they're saying about 28-26 to about 21-19. So they're thinking
I think that's
about
awfully
28-21.
generous. Yeah.
I agree with you because Western's only scored. Well, we've scored 20 points. We've scored almost 20 points. Yeah, we've scored 20 points in the first 3 games. So we could definitely do that again.
Yeah, our defense is going to have to step up and stop the run, though. I mean, and the other thing, too, is, our secondary, as good as our quarterback is, it's still going to be kind of hard to contain him and Xavier Gaines and that receiving core because they're definitely really solid.
Yes, they are. And that's going to be a big test this week. So just so you all know, if it starts going south is when we start seeing guys going over the top over us, then if they start, if receivers start running deep and they just throw over us, then get ready for a long night.
Well, I will ask you this. Are you more content with Pilgrim after the MTSU game? Do you still think that he's the guy moving forward?
No, I'm not. I'm honestly not content at this point. I think the big thing for me was the fumble.
Yeah. The
fumble is what I was just like, if he hadn't had the fumble, would he be on solid ground? I can't answer that because there are still aspects of it that I just thought, he should have done. He did better. He did a lot better. Mm-hmm. Am I as confident in him as Ty's Story last year? No, not anywhere close.
Yeah, Story, he was definitely a little more composed. Just the way he was able to control the line of scrimmage and the ball and be able to get the yardage that you would need to keep a drive alive. I think that's what really made him really good. He wasn't super flashy or anything like that, but he was still a very consistent, which that's something you really want out of quarterback position.
Yeah, and I think a lot of his issue or Piggy's issue is where Ty had the confidence in the O-line. Piggy hasn't developed that confidence yet. Mm-hmm. So, he's just got to get used to him, just got to develop that confidence. And once he develops that confidence, then he'll be able to sit back there just a little longer, not worry about the guys, because I feel like, once there's a blitz coming through or a stunt or whatever, then he's on edge. Mm-hmm. Once he sees that, he's a little on edge, he's a little more flighty, and, that's fine. But at the same time, just relax, buddy. We all good, not a big deal. But I think
you have a score prediction, or were you going to wait?
Yeah, I'll go ahead here in a minute, but I think my big thing with Piggy O is once he develops that confidence in the O line, then he'll be able to see when to run and when to sit it out and make that deep throw. But he's starting to utilize his assets. You know, he's starting to utilize Xavier Lane, who's stepping up. Tinsley stepped up. Then you got, I mean, honestly, like Jakari Moses. I don't know. My brain sometimes fuses letters for names. I was about to say Makari, and I was like, no.
Makari Joseph.
But yeah. But Jakari Moses, you know, he was actually throwing to him. You know, I could definitely see him throw to him out of the backfield a little bit more. And then, of course, Simon. I mean, there's a lot of assets there. I think that could definitely he could actually do a lot better with. But we'll talk score predictions real quick. So, Jared, what do you think yours will be? What do you got?
Well, Marshall is one of the better teams that we've played. I still think they're better than Liberty, and we lost to Liberty at home. So I'm just gonna go against what is being predicted. I say it'll probably be 31-20 Marshall, just because I think that our defense still needs work and our offense is getting there, but it's not going to be enough for us to pull this one off, at least this early in the season. If it would be next month or Black Friday like it used to be, I would feel a lot more confident. But the way it stands in like the first week of October, I don't know about that.
I'm honestly not confident either. I know Mr. Hilltopper's listening. If you want to shout out a score, I'll shout it out there for you. But what numbers are we looking at? Even though it's homecoming, what are you thinking?
I was 31-20, Marshall.
31-20. Okay, that's a little higher than like what we were talking about with Vegas talking about, but it's definitely doable. I'm going to say I'll say 35-21. I'm going to go a little higher than you.
I was thinking you were going to make it closer.
No, honestly, I think Washington's going to get their 3 touchdowns, but I think Marshall's just going to thump us, and I hate that. Don't get me wrong. I hate to even admit that, but right this year with everything going on, I think we'll just have to thump it up to COVID and just go on. Just be like, it's because of COVID that we lost to Marshall.
Yeah. That's how I feel too. I'll just pretend this season didn't happen if we just do under 500 or worse.
Yeah.
Which I guess we can't even go 500 this year because we only play 11 games, right?
Yeah. It's you're either going above or below. So
yeah.
Yeah, and so far we've got 3, so we've got to win. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's the end of the world if we lose to Marshall because they're one of the better teams in the conference, and I think that they'll most likely win the East just because, I mean, they seem to show the most promise. I mean, I don't know if FAU has actually been healthy enough to play a game yet with William Taggart.
I don't know either. Let me see if I can Let me look up FAU real quick.
Yeah, because I feel like they would be the only competition that's really in the East this year. Because UAB, they're in the West, aren't they?
UAB, I think they are.
Okay, yeah.
Yes. They're leading the West right now.
Yeah, I think the West is UAB's to lose. So
FAU is currently undefeated at 1-0.
Wow, they played a single game as we've already played 4.
They played Charlotte and they beat Charlotte 21-17. They did not play Georgia Southern, which was the first game of the year. And they did not play South Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mr. Hilltopper said he's talking about if we need to hold them to like 28 if we want to win. Which I agree. If we got to definitely keep them under 30. And if the offensive stays on the field, if we can eat that clock up, which is such a Sanford-esque strategy, but I think if we can keep the O off the field. Their offense off the field, our offense on the field will be set. Mm-hmm. Yeah, anytime you have turnovers, you're definitely going to be in it. And that's honestly, I think a lot of that plays with the secondary. Sorry, I'm kind of having a back and forth with Mr. Hilltopper. It's great podcast stuff. So,
And see, another thing that made last year so effective was that with Ty Story is that he did eat up a ton of
Yes.
time of possession. And see, when you do that, that lets your defense be more rested. So that's why they were able to hold teams as low as they were, is because we were controlling the line of scrimmage as much as we were. Like we were holding
Yes.
onto the ball more. Which I think if we're able to do that and not only just have drives where we actually score, but I mean just have some decently long drives where we're getting something out of it. I think that's the biggest thing that the offense could use.
I agree. I mean, even if you go from 20 to 20, their 20-yard line, our 20-yard line, kick a field goal, you get 3 points, and you take up 8 minutes of the clock. That's a big chunk.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's crazy, but definitely you got to take Marshall's offense out of it, and you got to keep our offense in it. So you cannot have those easy turnovers that we had, but I mean, is it a possibility that Western wins? Yeah.
I mean, we never would have thought they would have beat Marshall the first time we ever played them in the conference. So, I mean, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you'd have took me back to that Black Friday game, I don't think we would have beat them.
Yeah.
I mean, if you put a gun to my head and said, if they win, you live, I'd be like, well, sorry.
Let me go write my will real quick.
Yeah, exactly. Can you give me a minute? But I definitely think it's possible. I think we got some possibilities here.
Stranger things have happened before. That's for
definitely. So Ross is having some bedtime issues with the kids. So running late on getting the kids to bed. So not a big deal. You may hear Abby yawning right now. She's starting to get a little more wired. She just woke up, so she's still a little delirious, which is fine. But I guess we'll start talking about our ghost stories. So I'm going to try and read my ghost story off my phone. So forgive me if I start talking slow. Yeah.
You're good.
Mr. Hilltopper said he got 20. ESPN's giving us a 21% chance to win. That's actually not bad as far as percentages go. I figured it'd be a lot worse, but so the what we're going to do is, since it's the 1st of October, we're in spooky season here, and it's Halloween
season.
Yes, it's Halloween. We're going to be telling ghost stories from around the hill, and a lot of people are not getting the heritage and history behind some of Western's buildings, and sadly, some of those buildings are being torn down. So one of the ones I wanted to talk about, I actually have a family member who works in this building. It's the Ag Expo Center at Western.
That's not even on the main part of campus anyway.
No,
so that's
no. But it's the one that I thought of when I started thinking about ghosts on campus, because she's told, quote, stories about people having issues with. Her name is Edwina. An Illinois woman died Sunday after being pinned between a tractor-trailer truck and a pickup truck at the Expo Center at Western Kentucky University. State police said Edwina Kolba, 26 of Springfield, was injured about 5:15 p.m. as she walked behind the tractor-trailer, guiding it backwards. She walked into the side of a parked pickup truck, and the trailer of the rig pinned her against it, police said. Obviously, it's a tragedy, but they say that she is haunting the Expo Center. Of course, I don't know when that article was produced, but I'm sure it was several years ago. But Edwina haunts the Expo Center. She's known to move the big lights that sit up in the top, those 50-pound lights back and forth, and some of those crazy things. So, Jared, do you want to talk about your Van Meter ghosts?
Yeah, I mean, just a few things. I mean, that's interesting. I'll have to ask my dad about that because he was an ag major, so obviously he spent a ton of time at the expo. So,
Yeah.
I'll have to ask him about that. But did you get to see the thing I sent in the group chat?
I did not watch it yet. Excuse me.
Well, that's one thing. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, to those who are listening, I don't know if you guys know who ghost hunters are. They were on Science Channel for a while, and they actually investigated Western's campus, and they investigated Schneider Hall, which is Gatton now. They've investigated Potter Hall and also Van Meter. And they did a really cool investigation. You can find it for free online. The name of the episode was Higher Deducation, which nice pun, haha, funny.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is kind of cool to see anytime I see some local place on TV like that. Because I mean, the Ogden Hall in Franklin, I've seen it on shows like that all the time. But seeing Western on TV with that, it was really cool as well. Because that was right as soon as I started going on campus. I think that was maybe like the year before I graduated high school. But anyways, like I rewatched it just to kind of get some more facts with this. But yeah, I was a music major, so I spent a lot of time in Van Meter. I mean, not like a whole lot, but I did have some concerts and stuff there. And of course, we would have rehearsals for those. But I mean, it's an eerie building. Like what happened, I think it was in like the 20s that there was someone, I'm not sure if they were doing construction or what, but someone fell through one of the skylights at the roof of Van Meter and fell onto the stage. And one of the things that they said is that it's like sometimes you can see like where the blood appears, where he fell or whatever, which I think is really interesting. They tried to debunk
crazy.
that. Yeah, even after all those years, I don't think that's the original stage that they had. But I mean,
I'm sure by now it's not, but
Yeah.
Abby agrees it's probably not.
Yeah. But I mean, for those who've spent time in Van Meter, it is kind of eerie. Like, there's been reports of like you would be on stage and maybe be practicing and look out in the audience and see somebody and then look back and then look over there again and no one's there. Like, just kind of weird stuff like that. I mean, even just being in like the green rooms and rehearsing and stuff backstage. I mean, I was in there by myself because like we have this one thing called the Prism Concert, which basically showcases the entire music department. It's mostly for like high school students that are in music and a bunch of bands. Like there's a ton of different high schools that come to that event just to see what the music department has to offer. It's just kind of a really fast paced thing, and there's different performances in different parts of the building. So I was in the green room by myself, and I mean, it's just so eerie because even if you didn't think that it was haunted, I mean, just looking at the building, it is really creepy. And the stairs too. That's what always gets me is because like there's these really narrow stairs off to the side, and you can go up to the top of those. I don't know why anybody would want to, but I mean, especially considering the guy died from falling off of the ceiling onto the stage. I mean, it's just really weird vibes in there, and it's always been one of my favorites. I've never seen anything creepy in Van Meter, technically, but I mean, you get a kind of a weird feeling in there by yourself, especially.
So if you Google Ghosts of Western Kentucky University, they've got the written down version of the stories of the ghosts that haunt Van Meter. Ghost or ghosts. And there's 3 different stories apparently of the ghost. So one is that a construction worker fell through the skylight into the lobby and was killed.
Yeah.
And then
I thought it was the stage, though.
That's fine. And then the blood of the worker reappears when the floor is washed.
Yeah.
Another version says the ghost is a student who was hanging lights above the stage and fell onto the floor below. So that's your version you heard.
I mean, potentially. See, that's the thing with folklore, too, is because one event happens, but after so many years of passing it down that there might be just little... It's like that one game Telephone where you have like a line of people and you say something to one person and they have to whisper it to like throughout the entire line of people. And then what the person at the end says is completely different than what you had. I mean, it's just when you go through so many people over so many years, stories get kind of twisted like that. So, I mean,
so the funny thing is, now that after you say that, the other story is that the stories were combined and that the construction worker fell through the skylight onto the stage, but that there is no skylight over the stage at Van Meter. But they say that the skylight was removed because of the death. But, I mean, who knows?
Who knows? I mean, you would have to dig deep to find out the real answers to stuff like that.
But psychologically speaking, if you want to be scientific and actually talk about the actual science behind why people feel that weird feeling when they're in big rooms and stuff like that, there is psychological proof that if you're in a big room like that and it's completely dark, that you believe that there is someone watching you or, you know, some kind of otherworldly presence. It it's
Here's
actually
something that you should look up that I think is really interesting. I mean, there's a video I watched on YouTube. It's almost 30 minutes long, just talking about like liminality and like things that are considered like liminal spaces. It's like a gas station or even like schools. Like a university is a liminal space for the most part. It's not exactly a destination that you're going to stay there forever. It's like usually a place that you're there for time and stuff like that. Like those are always like the eeriest places for whatever reason. So, I mean, especially even in Diddle Arena, I wouldn't really get freaked out or anything. But if you're in there by yourself and it's dark, I mean, just the fact that you're kind of alone in what should be a bustling and usually full of people building. And that's why this pandemic has been so weird, too. Seeing pictures of Broadway in Nashville and there's nobody there. Seeing all these empty stadiums when there's a football game going on. It's just that kind of weird sense you get seeing things like that.
It's almost post-apocalyptic, right?
Yeah, because I mean, usually when you see a place like a mall or something like that, I mean, you would expect to see a ton of people there, but when you're there and there's nobody there and it's just you, then I mean, it's unsettling because you know that it's technically not right, that there should be people here.
That's the thing that kills me. Like I saw a buddy posted a picture when we were in the heat of the pandemic, which was ironic at the time, but when we were in the thick of it, because he was going down like downtown Nashville and there's no cars on the road. You know,
Dude,
nobody on
let
the
me tell
road.
you, I was commuting still through all of that. I worked in Goodlettsville throughout all of April, and when everything was shut down. And driving from Franklin, Kentucky down to Goodlettsville, there was some days where I maybe saw 10 or 11 cars on my side of the interstate going south. And it was the freakiest thing I've ever seen because I've been commuting for almost 8 years now. Because I mean, I commuted all 4 years at Western, and I've been commuting in Bowling Green and Nashville since then. So I mean, I'm always used to seeing the interstate covered up. But when the pandemic was going on, and I'm driving, and it's like just me for miles, I'm like, what the heck is this? It just didn't feel right at all.
Yeah.
I loved it, but it didn't feel right at all.
It's one of those where you're watching like this movie and the guy's going on down the interstate and there's not that many on there and you're like, nope, he shouldn't do it. Nope. I've seen this movie. He doesn't need to go on down there.
Yeah.
But there are several books apparently. Dolly Carlisle did an article called Boo, Van Meter Ghost Haunts Western's Actors in the College Heights Herald, May 3rd, 1973. So if you can find that. And there is another article by Chris Hutchinson who did one called Thrill on the Hill, Ghosts, Spooks, and Haunt Western. And that one was from 97.
And even since then, I know that there's been a bunch of other things. Like I know Westerns put out articles around Halloween just talking about the history of all the creepy things. Because, I mean, it's not just like 1 or 2 buildings on campus. It's like 5, which is crazy. Because, I mean, even PFT, I mean, that's a building that gives me weird vibes too. Because, I mean, we know that people have thrown themselves off of it and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Really unsettling.
The sad part is the people who pass away, whether it's, they have some kind of issue or, whatever. And I don't want to bring us down after talking about ghosts. Thanks, Abby. But if you're somebody who's having issues or needs to talk to somebody, there are resources out there. So don't think that you're alone. Definitely reach out. But there was an individual I know that killed himself who jumped out of PFT because the story was that he took shrooms. He was eating shrooms and the RA was trying to catch him, and he runs and he jumped out the window, and that was before they fixed the window so you could barely open them. So there's that student I know that killed himself there. But there is a story on PFT, and we'll talk about these. We'll talk about a couple more next week.
I don't want to spoil all of them. No more to talk about.
Oh, we're definitely going to save them. We'll have some more next week and, following week. And then definitely by Halloween, we'll have probably a few more. Apparently the SAE house is haunted. Did you know that?
I think I've heard a few stories, but I think you can pick any building on Western's campus and say that it's haunted, and I would believe it.
Yeah, definitely. If it's an older house. The funny thing is I've stayed in McLean. Thanks. I stayed in Barnes. I stayed in Bemis for football camp and stuff. So I don't remember if I stayed in Potter. I don't know if I did or not. Potter's the one over by University, isn't it? Or is it? Avenue
Potter
of
is up
Champions.
Potter is up towards the top of the hill.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I remember what you're talking about now. And which one am I thinking about then? The one over by Avenue of Champions, across from baseball. Or used to be.
Oh, shoot. Are you talking about Poland?
Yes, Poland. I remember back in the day when I was at Western, there was a young man who passed away. He committed suicide, and he was not found for 3 days in Poland.
Dang,
Yeah, it's so sad. Of course, that's the way the story goes. Okay. We're doing okay. Yeah, we're doing good. You've been so good tonight. Yes, you have. So like I've been saying, we got Marshall coming up. Marshall is I guess it's not televised. It's on.
I haven't looked yet.
It's on Saturday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Let me see if I can find anything on 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central.
Probably on ESPN 8, the Ocho.
Yes, it's on the Ocho for sure. Right after midget pole vaulting and.
I'm still waiting for our Conference USA to sign a deal with HGTV. I'm just waiting for that to happen. And Chip and Joanna Gaines are going to be the ones that do the halftime and pregame stuff. I feel like that's the best Conference USA could do. Just for
I think so. I mean, it's either
because
that or
at least
80.
Even if you did have HGTV, which has zero to do with sports whatsoever, at least it would be more of a national audience than what we're dealing with now.
Oh, definitely. Of course. Okay, so I don't know if this annoys you as much as it does me, but when ESPN goes to, let's say, MTSU, they just it's almost like they pull two guys off the street.
Yeah.
I cannot speak for our listeners, but
there was a lot of people commenting that it was very unbearable listening to them.
They were awful, man. I'm telling you. Oh, yes, it is on Stadium this week.
Oh, what do you know?
So that's awesome. That'll be fun. But they had a former player, which was fine, but he was not. He was no Brandon Doughty. Okay, Brandon Doughty's pretty good. He can usually tell you what he thinks or what he's and sometimes he can even call what's going to happen. This guy. It was really hard to watch, and it's just like okay. But I agree with the listeners. It was very unbearable. But this week we got Marshall, 6:30 p.m. It's on Stadium if you can't make it to the game, which like a lot of people, you may not be able to. On the radio, locally, it's at 100.7 FM or 1450 AM in Bowling Green. You can listen to Rander Lee and the guys. They're always doing great things. And, of course, next week we'll have UAB. You want to give us an early preview of what you think UAB is going to be like?
Picture a deer that's been on the side of the interstate for a few weeks, and that's probably going to be us. I mean, no offense.
Oh, no. Yeah, it's yeah, completely agree. But while we're getting fussy, I guess we'll just go ahead and we'll holler at you guys later. Check out the game this weekend for Western. I'm sure there's a lot of things going on. If you do not know something about WKU ghost stories, go ahead and holler at us. We'll be talking about them for the rest of the month.
Or if you have a favorite ghost story you want us to talk about. Then
yes,
please.
if you have a ghost story, definitely send it to us. We'll read about it on air. And Western plays.
This is what I'm going to do. I should close the WKU basketball group to where I make a post, and it's the only post that's visible, and you can comment on and ask for ghost stories. That's what I should do.
Yes, definitely. Western plays Marshall this weekend, 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern. It's on Stadium, so watch it there. If you can't watch it, I'm going to say that the Hilltopper Vaults will have it on Sunday, or sometimes they'll have it like an hour or so after the game. So if you're unable to watch it, work second or third shift, definitely do that. But as always, guys, go Tops.